Okay, so this isn't really a shootout. No drones getting blown out of the sky, nothing's going to fall and crash and burn. It's a video comparison of the Mavic II Pro by DJI and the Autel Evo II Pro. Now, I'm looking at the best settings, the best capture quality of both drones. So for the Mavic II Pro, I'm looking at 4K, and for the Evo II Pro, I'm looking at both the 6K, which is the maximum resolution that it will capture, but I'm also looking at 4K high dynamic range, because that's kind of a highest quality as well in a different way. Anyway, so both of these drones are straight out of the box. This is how they normally would come when you first open the box and start flying. I think probably 90% of the flyers, that's how they shoot anyway. But there's no tweaking, no adjusting, no fine-tuning the exposure value. This is just straight out of the box. Now in the video I'll do a little bit of tweaking in here just to show that, yeah, okay, even though it might look great coming right off the camera, you can tweak it a little bit and get the results you want. But without further ado, let's go jump into the drones. Okay, first up is the Mavic II Pro, shooting in 4K. Good image. The day was rather cloudy, but it actually made for good light, good comparison. This is with the sun to our back. Moving on to the Evo II Pro in 6K. Again, good quality, decent image. And lastly, the Evo II Pro 4K in high dynamic range. All good shots, all good quality. Here's a comparison of the three all side by side. And quite often this just boils down to what the viewer likes, the viewer's preference, or the image that the editor is going for. And this is from the opposite direction, going towards the sun. Now, even though it's a cloudy day, the sun is coming through a bit, so it does affect the sensors. But this is the Mavic II Pro 4K and the Evo II Pro 6K. A little bit of a difference coming this direction than from the other way. The Evo II Pro 4K high dynamic range. Great picture quality. And here's the three compared side by side. So, I wanted to be a little bit more objective with this, so I decided to look into the editor and view these images on the scopes. And so we come up to the scopes up here, and first is the Lumoscope, which really shows us our exposure value, this exposure quality. And 100 is all white and 0 is all black. And so you want to fill out the space as much as possible. And the DJI does a good job of that. And if we go down here, this is the color parade. It shows the balance of the color. And again, DJI makes great use. They have really good color balance in their images. When we look at the actual picture, it looks a bit underexposed. If you look into the shadows, you're losing some detail there. Still a good quality picture, very vibrant. And we can actually look, just by simple tweaking the midtones, probably bring out a little bit more detail in the shadows, and that's the case. So we didn't lose those details, it's just a bit of an adjustment. And now the Evo II Pro 6K. If we look at the scopes, again, good use of the spectrum. If you look, it seems like there's some space at the top and the bottom. But if you look closely, there's these little hairs that are sticking down. Those hairs are detail in your picture. And the same up at the top. There's these little wisps of trace. The lines in here are trace in the exposure arena. And you can see that there are little traces that go to the top and go down to the bottom, so it makes good use of it. And those are details in your picture. When we come to the color parade, looks good, but it's a little bit unbalanced. The blue looks a little bit out of alignment. Good detail in the shadows, so it makes good use of the picture. You can see into the shadows, and good detail in the highlights as well, the bright color. So very good use of the spectrum. And last, moving on to the Evo II Pro 4K high dynamic range. We bring up the scopes. And again, looking at the Lumoscope, exposure is good. We see these wispy traces, coming down to the bottom and up to the top. And the color parade looks fairly well balanced. When we move to the picture, fantastic results in the shadows. You can see right into the shadows. It pulls out details, very clear. Great detail in the clouds and in the sky as well. Just a really good picture. Now the picture to me looks a little light, almost pale, but you can adjust the midtones a bit and bring out the colors, make it a little bit more vibrant. And as you see, there's we still have the detail in the shadows. Haven't lost any detail. Now looking at it from the other direction, the Mavic II Pro 4K actually looks a little bit better going in this direction. We check the scopes. Again, good use of the full spectrum there, 0 to 100. Again, the color parade well balanced. Again, almost a trait of DJI. And as you look at the picture, there's a little bit more detail in the shadows. It's kind of surprising because we're going towards the sun. Even though the sun is muted a bit, you would think that it would cause a little bit more difficulty with the contrast. And still, we can look and see if we can bring that up even a little bit more. And yeah, maybe bring out a few more details in the shadows and still retain good quality. And the Evo II Pro 6K. Now this one was kind of surprising. We'll look at the scopes. It doesn't seem to be making as good use out of the full Lumoscope there. It doesn't seem to be filling it out quite as much. There are the little wisps coming down, but it seems to leave a little bit of a gap. The color parade looks very well balanced. It's a good balanced picture color-wise. And as we go over to the picture, you can see there's a bit of underexposure there. The shadows are losing some detail. It's still a good picture, but if we go over and we try to adjust just a tad bit here, I don't know that we really brought any more out of the shadows, but maybe a little improvement. Onto the Evo II Pro 4K high dynamic range. We look at the scopes again. Now we got the little trace hairs coming down pretty much to 0. Got a little bit of room there, and we do have some headroom at the top, although it's a very bright picture. come over to the color parade, and it looks very well balanced. The colors look in good balance. Picture looks great. Again, almost the same as going the other direction. You can see a lot of the detail into the shadows. You can see the highlights and the brights. It's just a really good picture. But again, it seems a little faded maybe. And just adjust the midtones a little bit and it'll bring it back out. Very good results with this. And that's it. Okay, so what's my take on all of this? They're both fantastic drones. I own both of these. I bought them both because of the 1-inch sensor, hoping to get good cinematic results out of these and good pictures. And I do mostly video, so I'm not analyzing the photo capability of either of these. But for video, they're both fantastic. And in my opinion, I felt that the Mavic 2 Pro 4K was almost on par, actually I feel it was on par with the Evo 2 Pro 6K. I thought the quality of the image was great in both of those. The difference with the 6K is you have a little bit more elbow room for editing. You can pan and zoom in your non-linear editor and maybe get some different results out of it. But for a quality perspective, I thought the Mavic 2 4K was pretty much on par with the Autel Evo II Pro 6K. Now the one that I really like, out of all the three different modes, the three different capture profiles, is the Evo 2 4K high dynamic range. Now, you do have to tweak it a little bit to get the color you want, but I find that I pretty much every video I capture, I tweak the color anyway. But the dynamic range is truly great on that, and you can get great details in the darks and you can get great details in the lights all in the same frame. And that gives me a lot more I can do as far as coloration and working with it. Just a broader dynamic range of the image. So if you don't like working coloration, then maybe just a Mavic 2 or even just shoot in the 6K on the Autel Evo. But for my preference, I really like the 4K high dynamic range for getting good results in post-production. Anyway, like I'd said at the beginning, it's really in the eye of the beholder or the editor as to what kind of image he wants to project. And in the end, we almost always end up viewing this on 1080p, so it's just how you make the best use out of the image quality in the capture and how you tweak it in the non-linear editor. Anyway, for what it's worth, hope you got something out of the comparison.